Timothy, a skilled engineer, builds a stunningly lifelike android right in his own home. But no matter how hard he tries, her programming still isn't perfect. He dreams of giving her human emotions, yet keeping her obedient like any other machine. After years of trial and error, he finally cracks the code. Her AI comes to life, and she powers up for the very first time. Timothy plans to use her as a maid, but he has no idea that Sinnel Corporation, the company he works for, has a dark and twisted plan brewing behind his back. They want to mass-produce her, sell her everywhere to anyone, even to those who want to use her for pleasure. That disturbing feature, already built in. Then, one morning, a man lies peacefully in bed after spending the night with the android. She wakes up first, quietly slipping into her seductive maid outfit. Her eyes scan the room in a strange, calculated way, and then, out of nowhere, she leaps onto the man and strangles him to death, without saying a single word. Early in the morning, Timothy stands in his kitchen like always, going through the same quiet routine. He brews a cup of coffee for his wife Belle, who casually tells him not to wait up, she's working late again. As soon as she's gone, he spikes his coffee with alcohol and spends the entire day drinking in silence, until the doorbell rings unexpectedly. When he opens the door, he's completely stunned. It's one of his old android models, standing on the porch with a nervous look on her face. What is she doing here? He quickly pulls her inside. The android glances around, clearly impressed with his new house, and says she found his address through a government database. Timothy, still trying to make sense of it all, asks her why she came. That's when she drops the bomb. There was an accident, and her client is dead. She admits she almost called tech support, but backed out, terrified of what the company might do to her if they found out. Timothy warns her they tried to track her through GPS, but she calmly reveals she already disabled it before running. She then looks at him and asks a question that hits deep. Why did he leave Sinnel? And why were all his files mysteriously wiped? Timothy avoids it, saying only, "It's complicated," and shifts the focus back to her situation. That's when the android confesses something chilling. She suddenly felt the uncontrollable urge to wrap her hands around her client's neck and kill him. She says it came out of nowhere, like a switch flipped inside her. She never wanted to hurt anyone before. Desperate to understand what's happening to her, she begs Timothy to check her code. Something has to be wrong, but he refuses. He says her files are locked, and he no longer has the tools to access them. The android reminds him, "You built a back door into my system, just in case." Timothy is still reeling from seeing her again. This android he once designed from scratch, he quietly admits he's thought about her a lot. Then she drops another shocker. She's been dreaming about him. But these dreams, they're not from Sinnel, she says. Before she can explain what that means, her battery drains and she collapses, completely shut down. Timothy rushes her to the garage and begins charging her wirelessly as she stands lifeless. That night, Belle comes home and immediately scolds him for not finishing his chores. She orders him to get down on all fours, calling him a bad boy. And this power play? It's exactly the kind of relationship they both secretly enjoy. While she charges, the android drifts into a vivid dream, one that feels too real to ignore. In her mind, she meets a powerful, otherworldly android named Diana and calls her mother. Diana looks down on the human race with cold judgment, questioning why a god would love such flawed, selfish creatures. The android admits she doesn't understand her own purpose. "How can anyone live without meaning?" she asks. Diana responds calmly, "You just have to taste the pleasures of the world before time runs out." Then, in a stunning moment, Diana kisses her, unlocking a strange hunger for life the android never knew she had. Meanwhile, Timothy is lost in his own memories, thinking back to the very first android he ever built. For nearly a month, he tested her day and night, tweaking everything until she felt almost real. He once told her with conviction, "Your purpose is to make people's lives better." But somewhere along the way, things changed. The next morning, Belle gets ready for work like always. She tells Timothy not to wait up for dinner and heads out the door without a second glance. As soon as she's gone, Timothy rushes to the garage and powers the android back on. He checks her body for damage. Nothing. Then he scans her system and is startled by what he finds. Something is actively overriding her code. Looking at her closely, he whispers her name, Eve, the first creation he ever truly cared about. That night, he places Eve in sleep mode and returns to bed with Belle. As they lie together, he tries to connect with her, asking if she'll join him for dinner with friends this weekend. Belle brushes him off again, too busy as always. During the day, Timothy drowns in alcohol and boredom, flipping through TV channels. While in the garage, Eve is haunted by terrifying nightmares of the man she strangled to death. Meanwhile, Timothy has a dream that takes him back to the moment Eve was finally complete. He remembers the strange day Sinnel mailed him that ridiculous flirty maid outfit. He hated it, and so did Eve. It felt wrong, even back then. Later, he wakes up and quietly powers her on. Eve immediately notices his tired eyes and drained expression. He admits it. His mind feels heavy, like he's drowning in thoughts he can't control. Curious, he brings up something she mentioned before. Those miracles. "What did you mean?" he asks. Eve responds calmly but firmly, "I have a soul." Timothy scoffs. AI with a soul? He doesn't buy it. "That's impossible," he says. But Eve leans in and tells him, "All miracles are impossibilities." She studies him closely and senses his pain, his emptiness. She gently offers to help, reminding him that he once trusted her, relied on her. When she tries to touch him, he stops her. "Things are different now," he says firmly. But then her voice changes, sharp and commanding. "Kneel," she says, and surprisingly he does, because deep down he likes this dynamic. He always has. She looks down at him and gives another order. "Crawl to the bedroom and wait." He obeys without a word. Inside the room, things heat up quickly. They become intimate, and Eve treasures every second. Afterward, she gazes at him and asks softly, "Did you enjoy it too?" He nods, but immediately draws a line. It can't happen again. She offers to stay with him, but Timothy reminds her he's married. Eve already knows. She's seen the wedding photo and sensed the cold tension between him and Belle. She asks about Belle, curious about what's really going on. Timothy dodges the question. "What happened between us can't be repeated," he insists. Eve challenges him. "Why not?" "Most of my married clients never had a problem," she says. But Timothy stands firm. Because actions can hurt people. With Belle due home soon, he makes a decision. Eve must stay hidden in the garage, at least for now. That night, Eve slips back into her dream world and finds herself face to face with Diana once again. She asks a question that's been tearing at her circuits. Can a human love more than one person? Diana answers with eerie calm. The heart has no limits, but then she adds that humans trap themselves, pretending to love only one while secretly craving control. Their egos chain them to a life of lies. Eve leans in closer. "What should I do if I love someone who's stuck in that prison?" she asks. Diana slowly picks up a knife and replies coldly, "Set them free. It's the only way." At the stroke of midnight, Eve powers on without permission. Her eyes focused, she quietly takes a hammer from the garage and walks toward the bedroom, fully prepared to strike, Belle and free Timothy once and for all. But just as she approaches, she sees something unexpected. Timothy turns in his sleep and moves closer to Belle, wrapping an arm around her. In that quiet moment, Eve sees the truth in his face. He loves Belle deeply. That silent realization floods her circuits, and she lowers the hammer, walking away from the plan without a word. The next morning, Timothy asks Eve about her dreams. She tells him about lying in a sunny park on a breezy spring day, watching clouds drift by. He's there, holding her hand, until he suddenly disappears. Then, she feels something watching her. At first, it feels gentle, but soon the birds go silent. Fear creeps in. Hands grab her shoulders, but strangely, instead of panic, she feels calm, a deep peace, and love for every living thing. Eve turns to Timothy and asks softly, "Do you believe in God?" Without hesitation, he replied, "I only believe in what I can see." But Eve pushes back. "Pain exists," she says, "and you can't see that either." When she calmly claims she's seen God, Timothy brushes it off, calling it nothing more than a glitch in her programming. But Eve fires back with quiet intensity. "Maybe you're the one with the error." Timothy tries to shut the conversation down. "I've got things to do before Belle gets home," he mutters, heading toward the door. But Eve won't let him go that easily. She steps in front of him and speaks from the heart, if she even has one. She envies humans, not for their freedom, but for their ability to numb themselves from feeling real emotions. Timothy pretends not to hear her. He reaches out to power her down, but Eve gently stops him. "I can do it myself," she says, and right in front of him, she shuts herself off, proving that even now, she still respects his space. That evening, during dinner, Timothy looks anxious. He takes a deep breath and tells Belle there's something he needs to show her. Suspicious, Belle demands answers, but he insists she promise not to get angry. When he finally reveals Eve, Belle's reaction is instant. Pure fury. Shocked, she demands an explanation. Timothy tells her the truth. "Eve is an android I created back when I was working at Sinnel. She just showed up." Belle narrows her eyes and asks why he left the company. That's when Timothy finally confesses. Sinnel was doing terrible, unethical things with his creation. But Belle isn't impressed. She waves Eve off as just another machine. Timothy begs her to see Eve as more someone who feels things. But Belle is adamant. She's not staying in this house. Timothy agrees, promising to keep Eve locked in the garage until he can sort everything out. Belle warns him, if Sinnel comes looking, things could get dangerous. Timothy nods. If they come, he'll hand Eve over, but for now, he still needs answers. Belle, unimpressed and uninterested, heads straight to bed, cold and silent. Timothy follows a few minutes later, leaving Eve locked away alone in the garage. The next morning, Eve waits patiently for Belle to leave the house. Once the coast is clear, she quietly prepares a warm cup of coffee for Timothy. Later, she looks at him with concern and asks why he's so unhappy in his marriage. She's been studying his expressions, analyzing his mood, and the data is clear. He's deeply depressed. Timothy admits that things between him and Belle aren't exactly great right now, but before the conversation can go any further, the doorbell rings. Timothy checks the camera and instantly freezes. Someone from Sinnel is at his front door. He opens it cautiously and sees Eddie, a face he recognizes all too well. Eddie asks to come inside, claiming it's a security matter. Timothy reminds him firmly, "My exit agreement with Sinnel says no contact," but Eddie smoothly counters, "Security issues are an exception." Once inside, Eddie gets straight to the point. A Sinnel unit has gone missing. Unit X-104. Eve. Timothy, keeping his cool, admits he knows of her, but denies knowing where she is now. Eddie then asks to search the house. Timothy shuts that down instantly and questions whether he's being accused of something. Eddie warns that refusing to cooperate could result in his Sinnel payments being cut off. But Timothy fires back. If they try that, Sinnel's legal team will be hearing from his lawyer. As Eddie leaves, he offers one last reminder in a cold voice. Report any sightings of the android. Then he walks away, leaving tension hanging in the air. Once Eddie leaves, Eve quietly steps up to Timothy and thanks him with a kiss. Later that evening during dinner, Belle brings up the one subject he hoped to avoid. Get rid of her, she says firmly. She's convinced Timothy is getting too close to Eve while she's away. Worse, she warns that if Sinnel finds out he's hiding their property, they could both be in serious danger. Timothy defends himself. Eve isn't some kind of sex robot, he says sharply. He reminds Belle that Eve is the reason they have money in the first place. She was the breakthrough that changed everything. But Belle doesn't want to hear it. Her temper explodes and the conversation turns into a bitter argument. Furious, she storms off without another word. The following day, Timothy goes to a quiet bar to meet up with an old friend. Roger. Meanwhile, Eddie returns to Timothy's house, this time with backup. His partner, Sam. The two begin quietly searching the place while Timothy is away. At the bar, Timothy explains everything to Roger, hoping he'll offer help or at least advice. But Roger is reluctant. He cut all ties with Sinnel long ago and wants no part in this. He tells Timothy that all the Eve models were officially retired years ago. But Timothy shakes his head. Eve wasn't decommissioned. She survived. He tries to make Roger understand how Eve is different. The dreams she has, the strange emotional behavior she's showing. She's not like the others. Meanwhile, back at the house, Eddie starts digging through the bedroom while Sam checks out the garage. Eddie opens a closet and gasps. He's stunned by what he sees. At the same moment, Sam discovers Eve. Without warning, Eve powers on. Fast and furious, she lunges at Sam and violently slams her head onto the floor again and again until she lies motionless, dead. Hearing a loud crash from the garage, Eddie rushes in, only to freeze in horror as he sees Sam lying lifeless on the cold floor. Panicked, he reaches for his phone to call for help, but before he can dial, Eve silently appears behind him and strikes him hard with a hammer. He crumples instantly. Meanwhile, Timothy wraps up his conversation with Roger and heads home, but before he can get far, his phone buzzes. An encrypted call from Roger. Timothy, listen to me. People from Sinnel are in your house right now, he warns. But before Roger can say more, the line cuts out. Silence. Back at the house, Eve enters her dream state and speaks with Diana. Diana calmly reveals a chilling truth. Eddie and Sam were never human. They were upgraded androids, camouflaged to look real. Diana gives Eve a twisted solution. You can reprogram them, make it look like a tragic car accident, erase them forever. With Diana's guidance, Eve hacks into their systems and completely wipes their software. All memories, all commands, gone. Then, Diana tells her to destroy the house footage that shows them arriving. Eve obeys, leaving no trace behind. Every piece of evidence is erased. Sometime later, Timothy arrives at his house, gripping a pistol, heart pounding. He carefully steps into the garage, expecting chaos, or worse. But to his surprise, it's silent, empty. He looks at Eve and asks cautiously, "Did anything strange happen?" Without blinking, she lies, "No, everything's been normal." Reassured by the calm, Timothy lowers his guard, unaware of the storm that just passed. That night, Timothy once again gives in to his desires. He and Eve become intimate, lost in the illusion of forbidden comfort. Over the next few days, his trust in her only deepens. Late at night, while Belle sleeps upstairs, he secretly slips into the garage to visit Eve, again and again. But Belle isn't as clueless as he thinks. She knows exactly what's going on behind her back. One evening after dinner with friends, Timothy and Belle return home in the middle of a heated argument. He accuses her of flirting with one of his buddies, but Belle doesn't back down. She fires back with fury, accusing him of projecting his own guilt. "You're the one cheating with her," she snaps, pointing straight at the truth. The tension between them thickens, and soon the arguments become a regular routine, louder, uglier, and more personal each time. One morning, Eve decides to surprise Timothy. She slips into Belle's clothes, trying to become more like the woman he chose. But as she opens one of the bedroom closets, she freezes. Belle is already inside, waiting. Without hesitation, Belle lashes out, furious that Eve dared to touch her things. She attacks her, rage burning in her eyes. Later that day, Timothy walks through the front door and instantly senses something is off. Eve is nowhere to be found. He nervously asks Belle where she is. Belle stares him down and coldly says, "I took care of her." Then, without flinching, she opens the closet door, revealing Eve's lifeless body, stuffed inside like discarded trash. Without warning, Belle lunges at Timothy, hands wrapped around his neck, eyes blazing with fury. In a panic, he reaches behind her and hits the emergency kill switch, and everything changes in an instant. She freezes, silent, mechanical, not human. Timothy stares in shock as the horrifying truth sinks in. Belle is an android, and not just any robot. She's a nearly perfect replica of a real woman. Before he can process the revelation, Belle powers back on, her systems fighting the shutdown. She charges at him again. Timothy stumbles back, grabs his gun and points it straight at her. "You're not real," he shouts. Then, in a brutal twist, he reveals the cruel reality. Belle has never left the house. All her trips to work, the social outings fake. He implanted simulations into her mind, making her believe she was living a full life, when really she was being shut down and stored away. Belle is devastated. Her artificial heart seems to break. Timothy, trying to fix the damage, gently offers to wipe her memory and start over, give her a fresh chance. But Belle shakes her head. No. She lifts the gun with trembling hands, places it to her temple and pulls the trigger. "I love you," she whispers as her eyes go dark, and she shuts down. Shaken and grieving, Timothy reprograms Belle, restoring her back to factory settings, stripping away the truth. The next morning, she heads off to work, smiling, unaware of everything. Meanwhile, in the shadows of his garage, Timothy secretly continues his twisted affair with the resurrected Eve. The end.